The Wife is First. Volume 2, Campaign in the Land Under Heaven. Chapter 46, Before the Campaign. Assistant Minister Xiao's selfishness ultimately stirred up all of the court, like a bowl of congee, and threw it into a tizzy. However, these disturbances didn't affect Jing Xiao's army camp. They were going to set out in a few days and everyone was busy sorting out internal affairs within the camp. Since the court had yet to finish investigating the case, the properties of the officials who had embezzled funds were confiscated first. However, they were just small fry, so it wasn't enough to fill the gap in the army funds. Emperor Hongzheng had the treasury allocate more silver to make up for the difference. All of a sudden, the army had a lot of money, and someone was needed to quickly take over and organize everything. However, Mu Hanzhong was only the military advisor and had no authority to manage such things. Zhao Meng suggested that Jing Xiao promote Mu Hanzhong to military advisor general. Mu Hanzhong declined and said that he had just entered the army camp and couldn't hold such a position. Finally, they compromised and he was conferred a title with a lower rank, military advisor general of the household. As military advisor general of the household, he could manage military affairs but not command the military division. There were no other ministers in the army now, and the power he had in this position was sufficient. There was no time for the Ministry of Revenue to send new scribes. Mu Hanzhong promoted several literate soldiers to scribes. From his investigation a few days ago, these were the regular people whom most of the soldiers looked for to help write letters for them, since the previous scribes had been too arrogant to do so. Mu Hanzhong wrote down the names mentioned one by one. Then, he called them all to the center tent today and gave them some problems to write and answer. Finally, he was left with 8 people who were literate and could also calculate the accounts. Do you all understand the accounts you are responsible for? Mu Hanzhong put away the account books and asked the 8 people below the platform. The army accounts were relatively simple. He had chosen a bookkeeping method that was fairly precise and easy to learn. After teaching all of them for a day, they were sure to have learned it all. Yes. The 8 people replied enthusiastically. The military advisor teaches so well that those who couldn't read have even learned to do so, Wang Er said with a smile. When he first saw the military advisor, he had thought that this man was just someone with an attractive appearance but who was useless in the army. But now, after the last few days, this Master Jun's reputation in the army had soared. Wang Er had been transferred to become a scribe. Now, he wouldn't have to do the hard work of carrying food and keeping the fire going. He was 100% willing to be a scribe. Mu Hanzhong nodded slightly. At the end of every 10 days, hand over the account books for me to check. If you don't understand anything, ask me on that day. If it's not an urgent matter or if it doesn't concern anything too important, you don't have to ask. You can make the decision yourselves. Some people were overjoyed when they heard this. Not only could they escape a lot of difficulties now, this small power also brought many benefits. However, I'll say these ugly words to you now: if anyone dares to embezzle army funds or cover up something extremely important, they will all be uniformly dealt with by martial law without mercy. Mu Hanzhong's face was cold and his voice dropped in pitch. Understood. They quickly saluted. They were reluctant to throw away this good job. Naturally, they wouldn't lose their heads over some small profit. When those people left, Mu Hanzhong rubbed the place between his eyebrows a little tiredly. The expedition was near at hand and there were many things to deal with in the army. These days, there were also no scribes. It took a lot of effort to reorganize the accounts that had been messed up. He had spent the entire day yesterday straightening them out. Young master, are you tired? Yun Song came in to deliver tea. Seeing how weary Mu Hanzhong was, he couldn't help worrying. It's fine. Mu Hanzhong shook his head and handed Yun Song a piece of paper. Go back to the estate tomorrow and get these things. Yes, young master. Yun Song took the paper. Seeing that Mu Hanjiang still had things to deal with, he withdrew. Yun Song. Jing Xiao, who had come back from training, called for his young manservant. Go to the other residence tomorrow and tell Renfen to bring the people I want. Yes, Your Highness. Yun Song hesitated for a moment, then said, though young master told me to go back to the estate to get some things tomorrow. Oh, I see. Jing Xiao thought for a moment. Then go and get those things, then the day after tomorrow, go to the other residence. Yes, Your Highness, Yun Song replied, secretly thinking that to Prince Cheng, Prince Consort Cheng's affairs were more important than his own. He thus added, those newly appointed scribes have gone back, and young master seems rather tired. When Jing Xiao heard this, he frowned. He lifted the curtain and went in, only to find that his prince consort was still busy at the table. How come things still aren't finished? Jing Xiao went over to hold the man in his arms. Mu Hanjiang struggled a little. Give me few moments to finish this. After he said that, he wrote a few more lines in the book before he put down the brush. He rubbed his aching shoulder, looked at the broad chest behind him, and couldn't help leaning on it. Jing Xiao's lips curled up. He touched the weary face of the man in his arms and shifted him into a more comfortable position. Hasn't the accounting work been split up? Why are you still so busy? The soldiers in the army send out letters every month, but these letters home might be used to deliver information, even unintentionally. Mu Hanjiang showed him a letter, which said that the camp was in the outskirts of the capital, the food had improved in recent days and the soldier had eaten beef. If the enemy reads this content, they'll know where the army is as well as some of what the soldiers are eating in particular, which is very dangerous. Jing Xiao nodded. Many people were specially assigned to check the military mail before it was sent out, but some things would inevitably be overlooked, such as that about the beef, which would have gone unnoticed. I'm reviewing the regulations, and I've listed all the things that can't be mentioned in the letters. You can see what else you need to add and write them down. Afterwards, I'll have it copied out several times, and send them to the scribes. Mu Hanjiang handed the regulations which he had just written down to Jing Xiao. Jing Xiao took the list of regulations but didn't look at it. He just looked down at the man in his arms. What's the matter? Mu Hanjiang looked at him in puzzlement. I wonder what good fortune I managed to accumulate in my last life that led you to me. When Jing Xiao looked at him, there was no trace of teasing in his eyes. He was seriously thinking about what he had done in his last life, and how he had never expected the heavens to treat him so magnanimously and let him live again. Mu Hanjiang looked at his serious eyes, and his lips slowly turned up. To be able to have a husband like you, it is I who am blessed with great fortune. They gazed deeply at each other. The great importance and love they shared was clearly reflected in their eyes, and they couldn't help but slowly drift closer to gently kiss each other's lips. Military advisor. Zhao Meng called out loudly before he suddenly drew aside the curtain to enter. The two who had just been about to make contact hurriedly sprang apart. Mu Hanjiang sat up straight and looked down at the account books on the table. Jing Xiao gnashed his teeth and glared at Zhao Meng. Your Highness is here, too. General Zhao raised his head to say hello and casually sat down in a chair on the side. How can you run so fast, General? You didn't even wait for me. The Right Protectorate General came in noisily, followed by the unperturbed Left Protectorate General. Coming here at this time, what's the matter? Mu Hanjiang put down the weasel bristle brush he had been pretending to write with and looked up at the three men. Zhao Meng rubbed his beard and gestured at the Right Protectorate General. You say it? Ah, we were saying that since life in the army has suddenly improved, we want to buy some new things. Why are you pulling on me? The Right Protectorate General had been talking happily when the Left Protectorate General suddenly tugged at him. Ah, why are you so wordy? Zhao Meng complained. Let me talk then. It's been really inconvenient for the military advisor to stay in the imperial tent with your highness all this time. Now that we're well off, we have to quickly set up a better tent for the military advisor. General Zhao felt that since the military advisor was now in charge of the accounts, he would definitely be too embarrassed to bring up the subject of spending money on himself, so Zhao Meng had brought the left and right protectorate generals along with him to persuade Mu Hanzhong. When Jing Shao heard this, loud alarm bells immediately began to go off in his head. He couldn't even eat nowadays, even when they were in the same tent. Wouldn't it be worse if they slept separately? His mood, which had been ruined by the disturbance, suddenly became worse, and he said coldly, "The military advisor can't fight. If assassins show up, how will he defend himself? I think it's pretty good for him to live in this imperial prince's tent. How can there be assassins in an army camp? Moreover, even if there are assassins, they would target your highness. What assassin would want to kill the military advisor? To me, living in the prince's tent is, Ayo, why are you pinching me?" The right protectorate general had only spoken halfway when the left protectorate general suddenly pinched his back. He couldn't help but turn around to yell at him. The tent should be prepared. Since ancient times, there has never been any reason for the military advisor to stay in the imperial tent. Mu Hanzhong looked at Jing Shao's face, which was clearly ashen, and he couldn't help smiling. "But we're setting out in 3 days. Setting up a tent now means that we'll have to shift the other tents around as well. The gains aren't worth the effort. We'll do that once we're on the march." When Jing Shao heard this, his complexion improved. He waved away the 3 people who had nothing better to do than come up with these stupid ideas. "Jun Qing, do you really want to set up another tent?" When the others left, Jing Shao embraced his wife unhappily. "I'm your military advisor now, not your prince consort. If we don't want to attract criticism, we still have to do this on the front." Mu Hanzhong patted the head on his shoulder. "Then wouldn't we have to sleep separately?" Jing Shao protested discontentedly. "N." Mu Hanzhong nodded. Looking at Jing Shao's sad face, he couldn't help but reach over and pinch his cheeks. "But His Highness can come to this advisor's tent at night to discuss the military situation." "Right, why didn't I think of that?" When Jing Shao heard these words, his eyes couldn't help but light up, and he pulled Mu Hanzhong up. "Go, let's go back to the imperial tent and discuss things for a while." ******. The next day, Yun Song went back to the palace and collected all the things that Mu Hanzhong wanted. There were a lot of things, but they were all small items, so it wasn't much trouble. Jing Shao curiously went over for a look and saw a jasper xiao. "Jun Qing, you can play the xiao." He hadn't seen Mu Hanzhong use this before. Jing Shao picked up the flute and looked at it curiously. The entire body was dark green and it was smooth. "I learned when I was a child. The chain is too heavy and would be a hindrance during the march, but I can take the flute with me," Mu Hanzhong explained. "If we run low on funds on the way, I can also pawn it off." Jing Shao's hands, which had been playing with the jade flute, stopped. Didn't all literati and scholars cherish their instruments? Why was his prince consort so special? *****. Before they knew it, the day of the expedition had arrived. The soldiers were all bursting with vigor and raring to go. They were the elite troops under Prince Cheng's command. The rest of the main force would one after another hurry to the southwest from all over the country until they would finally convene 300 li away from the southwest fiefdom. Yun Song said goodbye to Mu Hanzhong and went back to the prince's estate. The latter originally thought that he would have to handle all the daily trivialities himself. However, Jing Shao unexpectedly brought him a maid. This maid wasn't some random person but was Jiruo Yi, who had studied concealed weaponry with the Ghost of Nine Blades for several months. End chapter. The Wife is First. Volume 2, Campaign in the Land Under Heaven. Chapter 47, Shangxia Village. The soldiers had a long march ahead of them. Jing Shao's elite troops didn't bring any equipment and heavy armor for besieging a town, and not all of them were cavalry soldiers. They also brought along pots and pans, bowls, and utensils, and so on. They weren't going fast, so Mu Hanzhang's carriage didn't hold them back. It followed Jing Shao's horse unhurriedly the whole way. Ji Ruoyi just sat quietly at the front of the carriage and brought tea and poured water for the people inside when necessary. At Wu hour, Jing Shao would slip inside the military advisor's carriage to get some rest. The Right Protectorate General was very envious and often stole the coachman position. This way, he could worm his way into becoming close to the military advisor's beautiful maidservant. However, it was to no avail, as Ji Ruoyi would always respond to 10 questions with just one sentence. The Right Protectorate General's curiosity about the military advisor's origins was always on his mind, but he wasn't even able to get any word on it out of Ji Ruoyi. It's the military advisor's maidservant, of course she can keep secrets better than you can. The Left Protectorate General patted the dispirited Right Protectorate General on the shoulder. Little Left, are you comforting me? The Right Protectorate General shot a sideways glance at him. Naturally, then the Left Protectorate General expressionlessly turned and mounted his horse before continuing on his way. After more than 10 days in this fashion, they arrived at the Dahang mountain range. The endless mountains blocked their way, and they would have to make a detour of more than 100 li. Jing Shao ordered them to set up camp for now and that they would continue the next day. The single line formation is weak in both attack and defense. Once we encounter the enemy, we'll only be able to stand there and take a beating. In the center tent, Zhao Meng pointed at the formation chart. But we can't march quickly on a mountain road without a single line formation. The Right Protectorate General pointed at the map of the topography. What are they fighting over? After supper, Jing Shao came in with the military advisor. Seeing the two men arguing until their faces were red and their necks bulged, he directed the question at the expressionless Left Protectorate General on the side, who was silently reading a book on the art of war. Responding to His Highness, they're discussing how to get through the mountain road in the southwest, the Left Protectorate General replied. Jing Shao was well aware that their journey was impeded by the Dahang mountain range they had come upon today. It was more time-consuming to climb the mountains than to make a detour because of all their weapons and horses. They had thus chosen to look for a detour, but there were hills everywhere in the southwest and it was impossible to detour through all of them. They could only take the mountain road, but how they would do so was a major issue. Military advisor, tell us, what army doesn't use a long line formation when taking a mountain road? The Right Protectorate General dragged Mu Hanzhang over to look at the topographic map of the southwest on the table. Most of the mountain paths were narrow and any other type of formation definitely wouldn't work. I didn't say that we can't set up a line formation. It's just that if the enemy ambushes us on the mountain path, we can only just stand there and take a beating since the line formation is weak in the center. That's why I said we should send a group of troops ahead of time to clear the way. Zhao Meng was afraid of being misunderstood and quickly explained. Jing Shao frowned. His prince consort had only read scholarly and religious books since young and naturally hadn't read many books on military strategy or tactics. Jing Shao hadn't brought him along in the hope that he would be able to help on the battlefield. He just didn't want to be separated from him. Seeing that Mu Hanzhang had lowered his gaze and wasn't saying anything, he was about to speak up to help when he saw that lustrous and slender hand pick up a stick next to the simple sand table and draw a cross in the sand. Military advisor, what is this? Zhao Meng looked uncomprehendingly at the cross which Mu Hanzhang had drawn. Seeing the mark, Jing Shao's eyes suddenly widened. This formation is called the rushing yoke, Mu Hanzhang said slowly, pointing the stick at the 4 points of the cross. The soldiers are split and placed in the 4 corners, and still march in a long line formation. The front, left and right all face forward, and you will have both offense and defense. That's wonderful, wonderful ah! The Right Protectorate General was stunned for a moment, then shouted loudly all of a sudden. Zhao Meng walked around the cross formation and looked at it excitedly for a long time. The military advisor is knowledgeable indeed, this Zhao is full of admiration. Mu Hanjiang just smiled and didn't say anything. I told you to read more before but you pretended not to hear me. Jing Shao also knew this rushing yoke formation but there was no record of it in common books on the art of war. How did Jun Qing, who had never read military books, know it? He was shocked but in front of their audience, he wore an expression that said, "It's just to be expected." Jing Shao pulled his family's military advisor to his side and said, "I'll be leaving with the military advisor tomorrow to do something nearby. You lead the troops ahead first and we'll catch up in a few days." "What does His Highness needs to do?" Zhao Meng looked at Jing Shao disapprovingly. It wasn't a good thing for the commander-in-chief to leave an army halfway through a march. This matter is very important for the war in the southwest. All of you must keep a careful eye on everything in these few days. Make sure there isn't any trouble. Jing Shao faked a laugh. He obviously didn't want to talk too much about it, and the few people who were present tactfully shut up. Outside the tent, Mu Hanjiang asked suspiciously, "Where are we going tomorrow?" "To find secret treasure." Jing Shao's lips curled up and smiled mysteriously. Mu Hanjiang glanced at him before turning toward his own tent, and His Highness conscientiously followed behind him. "Why did you follow me in again?" Mu Hanjiang looked helplessly at the man who was lying on his bed. After the military advisor's tent was set up next to the imperial tent, Jing Shao hadn't slept in the imperial tent since. He would sneak into the military advisor's tent in the middle of the night at the beginning but nowadays, he would brazenly waltz in and refuse to leave. "I'll go back later," said Jing Shao. Holding the hand of the man in front of him, he pulled Mu Hanjiang into his arms and said, "I really do have something to ask you." Mu Hanjiang rolled his eyes. Who would hug the military advisor in his arms while discussing proper business? Seeing his expression, Jing Shao couldn't help but lean over and kiss him. "Have you read books on war? This rushing yoke formation can't be found in the statutes of Dachshund." When Mu Hanjiang heard this question, the smile on his face faded slightly. "I read books on war when I was young." When he was a child, he learned to read at an early age and had a good memory, so he often read some other books after completing his assignments. At that time, his father was often irritated and sighed incessantly when he saw how his son from his legitimate wife was so arrogant and willful as well as ignorant and incompetent, so Mu Hanjiang secretly learned some military techniques in the hope that his father would one day dislike his son from the main wife and think about him instead. It was only when he was older that he realized that illegitimate commoner sons couldn't inherit noble titles at all. Even if he was 10 or even 20 times better than Mu Lingbao, his father would still never treat them equally. Jing Shao heard this and only felt his heart ache incessantly. Truly a diamond in the rough, was this not a great pity? "Actually, I saw you when I was a child." Feeling Jing Shao's arms gradually tighten around him, Mu Hanjiang put his chin on his shoulder with a smile. At that time, the emperor had put on plain clothes and went to the Marquis of Beiwei's estate in disguise to play Wiki with the Marquis and had brought the young third prince with him. Mu Hanjiang's mother had allowed only Mu Lingbao to play with Jing Shao. Mu Hanjiang had wanted to see what the prince looked like but wasn't allowed to go over, so he could only hide behind some rocks and watch them play in the garden. "Is that right? I don't remember." Jing Shao scratched his head. To him, these things had happened more than 20 years ago. How could he still remember them? He couldn't help regretting it. He was curious about what Jun Qing had looked like as a child. He must have been pale and sweet, with a pair of big, penetrating eyes as bright as pearls. What did I do then? You. When Mu Hanjiang thought of that childhood event, he couldn't help chuckling as he said, "You wanted Mu Lingbao to be a horse for you to ride on. He wouldn't do it, so you beat him up until he cried. When he was crying, you put a rose on his head and said that he was like a little girl who only knew how to cry, so wearing a flower would help him get married more quickly." He. When Jing Shao heard this, he couldn't help but smile smugly. Unexpectedly, Jun Qing remembered the scene from when they were children so vividly. It seems that you wanted me to be your husband ever since you were a child, and hurried over to take a good look. Mu Hanzhong blushed at his words and got up to urge him to go back to the imperial tent. Jing Shao had to go back to the imperial tent first to bathe, and only after the candles were put out did he quietly grope his way back into the military advisor's tent. The next day, Jing Shao woke up the man in his arms early in the morning. Taking advantage of the first glimmer of light, he and his prince consort took Xiao He and galloped straight towards the mountains in the distance. Mu Hanzhong looked helplessly at this imperial prince who was acting like an army deserter, and yawned as he leaned on his chest. "Where are we going?" "To Shangxia village," Jing Shao replied. Shangxia village was a village at the foot of the Dahang Mountains. It was called a village when in fact, it could already be considered a small town. Because it was easy to walk around at the foot of the mountains, a town had sprung up here. People in the surrounding mountain villages often came down here to sell some rare game from the mountains and also to buy some things. Today was an even-numbered day of the month, and a market was currently going on, with one street being unusually noisy. Tiger fur, highest quality tiger fur. Brightly colored tigers from Ziyun Mountain, the fur is top-notch. There was a hunter peddling tiger fur on the street, which attracted many passers-by. "You're so skilled, you can actually kill tigers," someone praised. "Naturally. When the tiger caught a rabbit and was running back to its cave, I shot an arrow into its eye." The hunter bragged about his bravery, his spittle flying. The female tiger was going back to her nest with food. There were tiger cubs to feed. "You have sinned." When an old woman with a bamboo basket on her back heard this, she sighed and shook her head before she left. Hearing these words, Mu Hanzhong couldn't help but frown. Young offspring, what a sin. Looking at the tiger skin in high spirits, Jing Shao heard the sigh of the person next to him. Knowing how compassionate Mu Hanzhong was, he said to the hunter, "Do you remember where the tiger cave is?" "I remember," said the hunter, turning his eyes to Jing Shao, "but there's no path, it's all woods. No one can find it but me." Jing Shao took out a piece of silver. "Bring me the tiger cubs from the nest. This is the down payment. If you're back here in 2 days, you'll get 10 times the silver." "No joke." The hunter took the silver, overjoyed. "Don't worry, young master. Leave it to me. They're just wild animals, what's the point of sympathizing with them?" The butcher in the shop across the road snorted, raised his big knife and with bang bang dang dang chopped pork on a wooden block. Mu Hanzhong's heart felt happy when he saw what Jing Shao did. When he heard the butcher's words, not only did he frown, he turned to the butcher and said, "If young cubs in a nest aren't saved, they will definitely starve to death." "Humph, if you pity young animal," said the butcher, raising a slab of pork in his hand, "then when you eat the suckling pig meat, would you really shed tears?" Jing Shao turned around at this and saw a robust man wearing only a dalian, with a piece of pork in one raised hand. He was immediately overjoyed and stepped forward quickly. "May I ask, strong fellow, is your surname Hao?" This man was precisely the purpose of this trip. He was a descendant of a general of the previous dynasty, whom Jing Shao had only obtained as a fierce general by chance in the 20th year of the Hongzhen era. "Hao das Hao. You can't even read such a big word." The butcher smacked with a guang guang sound at the big plaque at the pork vendor's stall with his butcher's knife. Mu Hanzhong's gaze followed the butcher's knife and he read, "Hao Ji Butcher's Shop." Looking again, Jing Shao's mouth began to twitch. He couldn't help but muffle his laugh. "I wanted you to chop up a piece of meat, are you going to just stand around talking and not work?" Just then, a woman's voice filled with anger sounded from within the house. Not long after, a sturdy, married woman came out with a pot of meat and threw it in front of Hao das Hao with a crash. "Cut that quickly. After that, chop all of this into minced meat, old Manly is waiting for it. I. The butcher, who had been incomparably irascible just then, merely answered in a low voice, then earnestly kept his head down as he chopped the pork. End chapter. The Wife is First. Volume 2, Campaign in the Land Under Heaven. Chapter 48, Tiger Cub. Mu Hanjiang waited in the only restaurant in town for nearly 2 hours before Jing Shao came to find him looking quite downcast. What? Were you not able to convince him? Mu Hanjiang pushed a bowl of rice towards him and ordered the waiter to bring 2 more hot dishes. Jing Shao was overjoyed when he saw Hao Das Hao just now and wanted to persuade him to go with him. Unexpectedly, the man actually said that he had meat to chop and asked him to talk to him later. The weather was hot in midsummer and it was almost noon. Jing Shao was afraid that his prince consort would get heat stroke, so he asked him to go to the restaurant to wait for him. He waited by himself for nearly 2 hours before he and Hao Das Hao went into the room to talk in detail. He originally thought that he understood the man well. He was a descendant of a famous general with strong martial arts and extraordinary military skills. He thought he would be frustrated being stuck in this small mountain village, butchering pigs. Who knew that when he expressed his intention to recruit him into his military, he would give him an expression that said, "Why are you so troublesome? I am making a good living by butchering pigs and selling meat. Why would I want to fight in life and death situations on the battlefield? Nah, I'm not going. Not going." Hao Das Hao declared and then kicked him out of the butcher shop. If you want a good general, you must be patient. Mu Hanjiang poured him a glass of water. It will take a few days for the army to go around the Dahang mountain. We can stay here for a few more days. There's no rush. Jing Shao raised his head and drank the water in the cup and exclaimed, "This water tastes really refreshing." Mu Hanjiang poured him another glass and told him that the water was not boiled and was drawn directly from the well in the backyard of the restaurant. It was cold and sweet, and it was very delicious. I've already reserved room in this inn. Ah! Jing Shao swallowed a mouthful of food and looked up at him. "Jun Qing, did you already anticipated that I won't be able to persuade him? When taking a wife, you need to follow the 3 books and 6 rites. The principle of recruiting talents and marrying a wife are the same. You have to be sincere and use the correct method." Mu Hanjiang slowly took a sip of water, "Though there is a problem." "What's the problem?" Jing Shao frowned in thought. In the previous life, it was because in the 19th year of Hong Zheng's reign, a foolish and money-grubbing county magistrate was transferred here. He preyed on the local people and was lenient with his officials. One of those officials bullied the young daughter of Hao Das Hao's neighbor. He was so angry that he hacked the county official to death with a butcher's knife. The county magistrate wanted to arrest him, but the villagers petitioned on Hao Das Hao's behalf. The foolish county magistrate drove the villagers away with whips. There was a moment of chaos and the government officials actually beat to death 2 innocent people, triggering a sudden civil uprising. At that time, Jing Shao had been defeated with his confrontation with the king of Huainan and was very frustrated. He chanced upon this civil uprising on his way back to the capital with his troops. After leading his troops to quell the rebellion, he managed to appease the common people's ire by having a public execution of the foolish county magistrate. At that time, Hao Das Hao trained a group of villagers who did not know how to use martial arts to fight against the officers and soldiers, which made him appreciate his talent. He sent a petition to the emperor for an imperial decree granting amnesty to the rebellious villagers if they enlisted in the army. He had managed to bring Hao Das Hao under his command in this way. However, Jing Shao surmised that at this time, that county magistrate probably hasn't taken the imperial examination yet. Mu Hanjiang said calmly, "The beddings in this inn is very old, I'm afraid they are flea-infested." Ah! Jing Shao was stunned for a moment, and then he realized that this was the problem that his prince consort was talking about. Mu Hanjiang looked at his stunned expression and couldn't help but curled his lips and said, "After dinner, Let's go pull some fabric and spread it on the bed for the night. Why don't you let the waiter change the bed to a new one? Jing Shao frowned. There will definitely be fleas in such a shabby inn in a small mountain village. What would they do if they bit his prince consort's lustrous and jade-like skin? It is very dangerous to flaunt one's wealth in a place like this. It was already inappropriate for you to give that hunter that silver today. Mu Hanjiang placated him as he raised his chopstick to pick up some food to serve on Jing Shao's plate. There are many hunters in this town who brings down wild deer which is considered valuable and sell them to rich merchants who often comes here to buy them. We can't be considered as the richest visitor here. Jing Shao picked up the bowl, gulped down all the food in it and then stretched the bowl towards his prince consort. Mu Hanjiang glared at him but still picked up his chopstick to get more food for his husband again as he said, the waiter said that it costs a fortune to buy a new bed, but it will only cost 30 when to buy a new bed sheet from the cloth shop opposite from here. Cough cough cough. Jing Shao heard this and immediately choked on the rice grains. After talking about this for half a day, it turned out that Jun Qing just disliked to waste money. The two of them went to the fabric store to pick up 2 sheets and came back. All the market stalls were already closed. Most of the people who came here to go to the market were from the nearby mountain villages and had to leave early to get home before dark. Thus, by dusk, the streets were already deserted with even the stalls selling saizai noodles have disappeared. The two of them had no choice but to go back to the inn to eat the rather expensive meal there. The room in the inn was really dirty and unkempt. Jing Shao looked at the bed in front of him and felt that even if he put the new sheets on it, his prince consort would not be willing to sleep on it, so he simply carried him to the roof of the inn and put the sheets on top of the tiles. After laying it on layers of rubble, he personally went to the waiter to buy new quilts. It's cold in the mountains at night. If you don't get a new quilt, we'll definitely freeze. Jing Shao wrapped his prince consort in a quilt. This is how this inn does business. Since this is the only inn in this remote area, we have no other choice. The two of them also didn't lack money, so why was his prince consort becoming more and more stingy? Mu Hanjiang was wrapped in a warm quilt and rested on Jing Shao's arms. He looked up at the night sky in the mountains and said, when this battle is over, I want to set up some other business. All right, in 2 years I will take you to live in Jiangnan. Doing business there is easy. Jing Shao smiled and hugged him. Why do you suddenly value money so much? I heard from Xiao Yuan that the problems in the Ministry of Revenue have been very serious in recent years. The treasury may have been empty for some time now. If things had really gotten to that point, then even a few silver taels is indispensable. Mu Hanjiang sighed. Yesterday, a letter came from Prince Rui saying that the matter of embezzlement of army funds was becoming more and more serious. He had secretly discovered that even the Count of Yongchang and the 4th Prince were involved. If it was the 4th Prince who had taken those silver taels all these years, then that would be worrisome. We'll worry about this later. Jing Shao patted the head of the person in his arms and continued, help me think of how to persuade Hao Das Hao. Hao Das Hao's ancestor was a powerful and important general of the previous dynasty. It was said that he led his troops with extraordinary skills and the emperor of the last dynasty admired him very much. After the end of the previous dynasty, the Hao family ancestors refused to accept the new imperial family and ended up occupying the Dahang mountain range. However, the mountain stronghold had declined in Hao Das Hao's generation and he now ended up earning a living as a butcher. Mu Hanjiang closed his eyes and thought for a moment, from what you're saying, his ancestors were against the imperial family. I'm afraid it won't be easy to persuade him to serve the current imperial family as an army general. I will go with you tomorrow to have a look and then think of a solution. The two slept on the roof for a night. The cool breeze blew in the mountains on this summer night and being covered in quits, they passed the night in comfort. The next day, when the two of them arrived in front of the butcher shop, they were stopped by someone. Jing Shao was startled and immediately shielded Mu Hanjiang by pushing him behind his body. Young master, You said yesterday that you would give me 10 times the money for the tiger cubs. You weren't trying to trick me, right? It was the hunter yesterday who handed over a bamboo basket after saying this. Jing Shao opened the bamboo basket and saw something black scratching back and forth inside. Is this the tiger cub? Do you think it's fake? The hunter pinched out the contents inside. I went up the mountain before dawn, but the other tiger cubs were already taken away by someone else. Only this one was left since it fell into a mud pit and survived. Jing Shao looked at the dark mass and really didn't want it, but Mu Hanjiang had already bought a cloth towel from a nearby stall to wrap the small things in, so he had to pay the man 2 silver and sent the man away. Mu Hanjiang wiped the wet mud with a cloth, revealing the little tiger cub's face covered in mud. Although it was still dirty, he could tell that it was indeed a tiger. Its body was about a foot long, with its eyes half open eyes. It cried listlessly, "Va-woo, va-woo." Oh! A tiger cub! Hao Das Hao's plump wife was bringing out the chopping board. When she heard the tiger cub's cry, she excitedly came over to take a look. Mu Hanjiang glanced at her and asked, "Does elder sister have some warm water in the house? This tiger cub must be washed first." "Yes, I just boiled a pot of water for scalding off pig hair. Come with me." The fat lady seemed very happy and asked Mu Hanjiang to follow him into the house. Seeing that Hao Das Hao was in the backyard butchering pigs, the lady said, "Go watch the stall first while I help wash this tiger cub. I'll go back there afterwards." Hao Das Hao frowned slightly when he saw Mu Hanjiang, but he put down the butcher knife in his hand and walked out. Although this plump lady was fierce, she was careful as she worked. She quickly poured a basin of warm water and put the little tiger cub in the water. "Here, time to take a bath." "Va-woo." The little tiger cub was startled. Just as it was about to struggle, it suddenly smelled the scent of pig blood on her arm. He twitched his little nose and squinted his half-open eyes to find the blood. He opened his mouth and licked it, and the more he licked, the more vigorously he opened his mouth. He even opened his mouth widely, which was not yet full of teeth, and nibbled on the thick arm. However, the tiger cub's mouth was still very small and it couldn't even bite half of the arm. Having bitten on something, it completely forgot that it had been submerged in the water. Mu Hanjiang looked at her skillful movements and asked, "Is elder sister fond of cats and dogs?" "Haha, I have loved little things like this since I was a child." The plump lady laughed. The young master in front of her was gentle and kind, and his voice was also mild and elegant, which softened her fierce attitude. While washing the cub, she chatted with Mu Hanjiang. She even talked about how she had come to town as a child with her father to sell wares, and how a martial arts competition was held later for her hand in marriage. Surely, it was indeed Big Brother Hao who won the competition and was able to marry such a beautiful wife. Mu Hanjiang smiled as he looked at Hao Das Hao, who was bringing pork into the yard for the 3rd time. "Tisk, him." The fat lady glared at her husband, who was not far away. "He lied to my father that he was the king of the Dahang mountain. He claimed that if I followed him, I would be able to eat and drink well." As she spoke, she took a cloth towel and dried the washed tiger cub with it. The little tiger cub struggled dissatisfiedly as it cried "Va-woo" all the while. "I heard from the people in the village that the ancestors of the Hao family were really kings of the mountain." Mu Hanjiang took the washed tiger cub and looked down at it. The yellow and black fluff was still wet. Perhaps it had eaten well when its tigress mother was still alive, because despite of it being starved for a day, it was still quite chubby. It looked at Mu Hanjiang with a pair of round amber eyes and exclaimed, "Va-woo." End chapter.